Hello and welcome to this three-part video series on opening preparation. Before we get started, a little bit about myself. My name is Keith, I'm from the Houston area and I have a USCF rating of about 2100. In the last year or so, I've decided to give chess improvement and competition another try and have been playing and practicing chess on and off for over 20 years. Over the course of those years, I've noticed that the landscape of chess has changed tremendously, but for the better. Today, we have more tools at our disposal than ever before, but choosing how to use those tools has presented us with new problems, and choosing which tools would be most beneficial to us is no doubt a difficult question to answer. But in regard to opening preparation, I believe that I have found a way that is optimal for the average player in today's chess climate. To preface this series, I would like to note that you will require an internet connection, an account with one of the many chess playing sites available, a Chessable account, and chess-based software. To begin with, we will start by answering a few questions which will help us get acquainted with the hows and whys of our opening training regimen. The goal of opening preparation, as most would assume, is to achieve opening mastery of a given opening repertoire. To do this, we need to practice our repertoire and refine it over time. Our practice will be divided into two formats: focused repetition and practical repetition, while refinement is just a matter of being able to future-proof our repertoire. As we will see through the course of this series, we have all the resources that we need to achieve these functions for the purpose of opening repertoire mastery. Part 1 will cover getting things set up, an example of our training method in action, Chessable basics, including opening Explorer navigation as an alternative to ChessBase, ChessBase basics, and opening database creation. Part 2 will cover practical repetition and refinement, creating and updating our opening tree, using Lichess or any other chess site in concert with our opening tree to improve and refine our opening repertoire. Part 3 will cover focused repetition and being able to copy ChessBase database into our Chessable account through Chessable's course creation option. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's get started. First, we're going to start off with just an example of our training method in action. So you can see here in the database window, I have a Jobava, I have a Dragon, and I have a Benko. The Benko has not really been completed, and I'm going to be creating that and using that as an example for this course. So we'll go ahead and delete that. So we'll be focusing right now on the Jobava and the Jobava and the Dragon. And the Anti-Sicilians has not been completed either, so hopefully we're going to get one of these two options that show up in our games. So first off, I'm going to create two boards. Alright, and now that we have two boards set up, the great thing about this is in each board you can open up a different opening book. So you can see the Dragon has already been opened here, but we're going to go ahead and go to Openings Book, just for the purpose of seeing how this is done. Usually ChessBase automatically downloads to Documents, ChessBase, and then Books. Then we go to Books. We click on, in this case, we will click on the Jobava. Okay. And now we will go to our other board, and we will see that we have the Dragon here. So just for the sake of repetition, which we're all about at this point, we will go to File, Open, Openings Book, and then same location, Documents, ChessBase, Books, and then we go to Dragon. And now the Dragon is open in this window, and the Jobava is open in this window. And now we are ready to put into effect what we would like to call practical repetition. Okay, so in this case with practical repetition, we want to use 1 minute, 2 + 1 second increments, or 5 minute at the most. I really would advise against 5 minutes. That's kind of long. You're not playing to win, you're playing to learn. So it's okay if you lose on time. It's fine. You're playing these games to learn your repertoire. You're not playing these games to increase your rating online. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a simple bullet game. And if you really aren't comfortable with messing up your rating or whatever, the point is we feel like once you master your opening, you'll get your rating back. But if you're not comfortable with hurting your rating, you can always go to custom and you can select casual, and then you can set your time for how you want. In this case, we'll set it for 1 minute, 0, and then we click here and we wait for a game to begin. And there it goes. So now hopefully we get the Jobaba. Okay. I think the game went quite well. I did lose on time, but in this position, I believe I'm winning. Um, yeah. Uh, but once again, it really doesn't matter if we're winning or not. What we want to concern ourselves with, if we click this little arrow button, it takes you back to the beginning. I think I'm pretty familiar with this, but I think in this position, maybe I should have played F3. So if you don't have chess base, what you can do is we can see how this game progressed in the beginning. D4, D5, knight C3, C6, bishop to F4, standard. And now black has a number of choices. Knight F6 is the main choice, I believe. E6 is an option, but it closes in the bishop. Most people don't like to do that. So the immediate bishop to F5. And I think here F3 is the correct move, and I played the robotic E3. So we will see that if the C6 followed by the immediate bishop to F5 is supposed to be E3 or F3. And if you don't have chess base, this is the practical repetition method that you will use. You will go over to chessable.com, you will click on Tools, Opening Explorer, bring the board in a little closer. Now we'll go D4, D5, knight C3, C6, bishop to F4, bishop F5, and now we just click on Find in Courses. And it says, sorry, your query has returned no results. So what we do now is we go back and we try again. And we say D4, D5, knight C3, and then we can try to get creative here and just go bishop to F5 first. And then we click Find in Courses, and we can see the Jobaba system. So with these transpositional stuff, I mean, the authors of these books aren't going to put every single transposition in their book. So sometimes you got to you got to think outside of the box on different ways that you can access that particular line. In this case, we're calling it the 2 bishop to f5 variation. We can see f3 is the move. So if black plays c6 here, he's just transposing, right? So we can assume based on this that after c6, bishop to f4, uh, um, c6, I'm sorry, after c6, bishop f4, bishop f5, f3 is most likely the way to go because it will just transpose. So this is the way we will do it if you do not have chess base. And then you just note, okay, so from now on, if c6, bishop to f5, I'm going to play f3 and try to transpose into these lines here that I'm already familiar with. So if we go back, we can see, okay, so c6, maybe I've already added this to, or updated my, my book here. So we'll go d4, d5, knight c3, c6, bishop to f4, and here we do. We have bishop to f5, and now bishop f3 has been played the most. So this is probably most likely the move that we're going to go with. The reason I have a lot of moves here is because I've actually updated this opening book with actual games from the Mega Database 2020, and I've also updated it with games from Lichess. So that's just a more advanced feature of your opening book. It gives you options, and it also gives you a bird's eye perspective of what the most common responses are. So in this position, because I've imported all of these games into this opening tree from the Mega Database, which are a lot of mostly standard games, and then also imported from Lichess, which is mostly blitz games, I see that black usually only plays, you know, one of 4 different moves from this position. The main move, as you can see with 219 games, is knight to f6. So that's the move that I will focus on in my preparation, and these moves are like very, very low statistical chance of seeing these moves show up. So in this position after knight, and I can go further into the line, but the point is now I know that after f3 I need to play or after bishop to f5 I need to play f3. And as you can see with this setup, it's a lot more convenient than having to go into Opening Explorer with Chessable. We still love Chessable, we still want to use Chessable, but for these purposes of practical repetition, Chessable is just, it's inferior to being able to use ChessBase 2 board windows. Now the next game that I play on Lichess, I may play the black side. And if I'm playing the black side, boom, I just come over here, I go to my dragon window, and then I look at the dragon line, so on and so forth. And I just keep rinse and repeat. Now, if you have 2 computer monitors, this is even more efficient because you can keep ChessBase open on one window and Lichess and Chessable open in another window. Okay, so now that we've covered an overview of what the point of this course is to achieve practical repetition using an opening tree that we have input our opening repertoire into, for the purposes of practical repetition, we can now just take a quick look at what exactly our focused repetition is going to be. And remember, the 3 tenets of this course are focused repetition, practical repetition, and refinement. These are the 3 things that we need to be able to consistently do in order to master our opening repertoire. And for the purposes of focused repetition, we will utilize Chessable itself. So in this case, we look at, let's just load some of my courses here, and we can see, let's go slow. Let's go really slow here with the internet connection. Okay, and we can go down to Jobava. So let's learn the Jobava. All right, so we go to learn. Next, actually, I'm going to skip this and just go straight to the chapter, and we're going to go to browse. and this is something I'm going to cover in the final chapter. One of the problems that I have with some of the books in the repertoires on Chessable is you can see here there's an introduction with common ideas. Then there's theory with model games. This chapter here just includes model games, right? I don't care. I mean, of course, I want to see what the middle game ideas are and the plans, and it's good to have examples. But for me, this tends to clutter up the book. So in the final part of this video series, one thing that we're going to learn, or I'm going to show you, and see here we have the theory. We have model games, we have theory. And here in the next one, which is 3 bishop to f5, we have more model games, we have theory, model games, theory, model games, theory. And I don't mind the approach that the Ginger GM took here, but when I am studying the book itself, I don't want the model games. Like, for me, this is a great book, but I feel like the model games should have been given their own chapter at the very end, and it would only be a reference chapter. And then maybe at the end of the theory of a particular line, there should have been a link that takes you to that reference chapter and shows you that game. So I'm just not very happy with the format here. So in this case, what I did was I took the Jobava system here, and let's go back to Chessable, and I just created my own Jobava system using the same lines with the Create a Course option on Chessable, and I'll show you what that looks like. So here I called it Not Your Ginger's London, and then you see I got a little ginger guy here. All right, so if we click on the chapter selection, you can see that this is all exactly the same as the Ginger's repertoire. It just doesn't have the example games. And the other thing it doesn't have any of the commentary. So his book on Chessable is not useless to me. I will still reference back to it for commentary and opinions on different positions that maybe I don't understand. But for the purposes of focused repetition, I want to take all the fat off the meat and get right down to brass tacks. And in this case, we have nothing but lines. And the great thing about the Create a Course is I can take his book here and I can add lines to this book, whereas I cannot add lines to the book that he's created. So this is an option that is necessary for the purpose of focused repetition and refinement, whereas the original Jobava London by the Ginger GM is only good for focused repetition. So that's the reason why we want to create our own book with the same repertoire, so that we can grow it. Because these books, truly, they're just foundations to get you started, right? You're going to come across holes in any opening book repertoire that you see presented anywhere. You're going to come across, I played this move against this person, and this person didn't play opening line theory against me, and I didn't know how to refute what he did. Well, when you have this format set up, you can get your engine out, you can analyze your game, and then you can add those lines that include the refutation of how your opponent played against you into your opening book here for the purposes of future focused repetition, not to mention practical repetition. So I know that's a little long-winded, but in a nutshell, that's what it's all about, is being able to have your repertoire minimized and at the same time optimized for future refinement. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's get to the database. All right, we're going to close out this window. No, we don't want to save. And we're going to close out the other board game window. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create our database. In this case, I'm going to create a database for the Binko. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to File and New Database. And now we want to go to Chessbase here, and I like to keep my opening databases in a folder called My Openings, and this is a black opening, so we will put it under black, and we'll call it the Binko. Alright, you'll notice that every single database in my database window here has some kind of picture associated to it, whereas the new one created is just a blank page. Well, we need to change that. You want to right click and go to Properties, and then check the box that says Repertoire Black and click OK. And now you'll see that it's changed to an icon that we have present elsewhere in the database window of the Jabava, the Dragon, and the Anti-Sicilians, which is a work in progress apparently. One thing to note at this point is when I right click on this and I go to Properties, that checkbox is there, but if I go to the Dragon, which is also a black repertoire, and click on Properties, there is no check mark under black repertoire. So just for instructional purposes, I will click the check mark here and click OK, and now we'll go back over to the Binko and Properties, and you can see that the program automatically unchecks repertoire black. So one thing to keep in mind is that when you're adding lines to your repertoire, it's always very important to make sure that the correct opening database is selected for the particular lines that you will be adding. Otherwise, you'll have a headache later on with having to delete games and such. So now that we've checked to make sure we have the right opening repertoire selected, we are going to open a board window, and we're going to go to Chessable and open up our Binko Gambit repertoire. And now that this is open, we are going to skip the introduction and we're going to go straight to the theory. And now that we're here on the second chapter, deviations, move to number 1. This is always going to be move to deviations, so these are kind of like sidelines. On the first line, what we're going to do is we're going to put our cursor right next to the very last move, and we're going to triple click the left mouse key, which should select the entire line, and we're going to hit Control C. Now we're going to go back over to our board and hit Control V, and then we're going to go to Report View tab, and we're going to select Add to Black Repertoire. Note that a little window pops up when you highlight over it that says Save or merge this game into your repertoire database. And the quick key for this is Shift Control Alt D. So that's important. You don't want to come over here every single time to add a line. So these quick keys are going to be your best friend. Coming over here to add this line manually each time is going to be very time consuming, and it's going to be a pain. Notice that there's also Add to White Repertoire. The process that I'm going to show you here in this part 1 also applies to white repertoires. In the case of the white repertoire here, like for instance the Jabava, you're just going to go to Properties, you're going to select white repertoire here, and then click OK, and then anytime you save a line in this fashion, it's going to automatically save to that database. So we're going to go ahead and add to black repertoire, and you'll see a window that pops up with the final position on the board. With the final position on the board, and then we are going to click OK. But before we do so, let's go ahead and look at what this says. Save as new game, A45, so it gives us the ECO code, Trompowsky attack, and it gives us the opening name with 5, Queen C7, and the variation. So we click OK, and then OK. And now when we open up the database, we should be able to see that it's here. Alright, so it's here in the database. The date is important because, you know, a year down the road when we go into this database and we want to update it, we may update certain lines and we can see which ones have been most recently updated according to what the date states. Or we can see how old they are. So we will just rinse and repeat and continue this process. So now we go to the next line, Control C. And now what we're going to do is instead of hitting New Game, we're just going to hit Control-N to basically erase the previous line. So hit Control-N, and now Control-V to paste the line that we just copied from Chessable. And now we're going to hit Control, Shift, Alt, and D. Okay? In the case of a white repertoire, we would want to hit Control, Shift, Alt, and A. So Control, Shift, Alt, D. Okay, okay. Rinse and repeat. Copy. Control-N, Control-V, Control, Shift, Alt, D. Okay, okay. Rinse and repeat. Skip the information lines. Copy. Control-C. Control-N, Control, Shift, Alt, D. I'm sorry, Control-V first, Control, Shift, Alt, D. And OK. OK. All right, so that pretty much completes part 1 of this video series. I'm going to go ahead and finish this database up, and then in part 2 we will come back and figure out what we need to do with this database now that it's been completed. Yeah, I think that's about it for this part of this video series. I hope you enjoyed it and found it informational. Until next time, have a great one.